Every English garden, no matter how wild it appears, is built from the same underlying DNA. Ideas that have surfaced again and again across centuries. Ideas about control, about beauty, and about our relationship with nature. In this series, we're not following a timeline, we're uncovering the deeper forces that shaped English gardens and still shape them today. And that is the DNA of the English garden. When we look at an English garden, it's easy to forget how far many of its plants have travelled. Roses from China, tulips from Central Asia, rhododendrons from the Himalayas, and magnolias from North America. Each one carries a story, not just of botany, but of desire, ambition, and power. In this episode of the DNA of the English garden, we explore the DNA of plants themselves and how obsession and empire reshaped the English landscape. Before plants were arranged for beauty, they were collected for wonder. In the 16th and 17th centuries, wealthy landowners and scholars assembled gardens much like museums. Rare plants were prized not for harmony but for novelty. The stranger the form, the greater its value. Owning an unusual plant signalled wealth, education, and access to distant places. The garden became a catalogue of the world, alive, growing, and on display. By the 18th and 19th centuries, plant collecting became a profession. Plant hunters travelled vast distances in search of new species, often at great personal risk. They crossed mountains, jungles, and political borders, and many never returned. These journeys were driven by obsession as much as science, and a single successful introduction could bring fame, fortune, and lasting legacy. Plants were no longer curiosities, they were prizes. Plant collecting was rarely innocent. It followed the roots of empire. British colonial expansion created the networks that allowed plants to be gathered, transported, and commercialised. Tea from China, rubber from South America, spices from Southeast Asia. Botanical gardens became tools of empire, testing grounds for crops that could transform economies. Back in England, these plants were absorbed into gardens and landscapes, often stripped of their origins. The garden appeared peaceful, the systems behind it were not. Few stories illustrate this better than Robert Fortune. A Scottish botanist and plant hunter, Fortune travelled to China in the mid-19th century under false pretences. Disguised as a local merchant, he collected tea plants and smuggled them out of the country. These plants helped establish tea plantations in India, breaking China's monopoly. The result reshaped global trade. In English gardens, Fortune is remembered for ornamental introductions. The larger story is rarely told. But for a deeper dive into this story, see the video on this channel with the title Victorian Plant Hunters, Orchids, Tea and the Dark History of Gardening. In Victorian England, plants became symbols of identity. Owning rare exotics demonstrated sophistication and worldliness. Glasshouses allowed tender plants to survive English winters, becoming monuments to technological control. And collections were catalogued, labels were displayed, and rivalries flourished. Gardens reflected not just taste, but ambition. Over time, many exotic plants became familiar. Rhododendrons, once rare and thrilling, now feel inseparable from British landscapes. As plants settled in, their stories faded. What was once foreign became naturalized, both botanically and culturally. The English garden absorbed the world, and in doing so, rewrote its origins. Today, we inherit this legacy. We garden with plants from every continent, and this diversity can be beautiful, but it also raises questions. Which plants belong? Which overwhelm local ecosystems? What responsibility comes with inheritance? Modern gardeners are increasingly aware of these tensions. The garden is no longer just a place of pleasure, it is a site of ethical choice. Plants are never just plants. They carry stories of movement, desire and power. In the English garden, they reveal a history shaped by obsession and empire, softened by time but still present in the soil. Understanding this DNA changes how we see the landscape, not as static, but as deeply connected to the wider world. The English garden has always been more than a collection of plants. It's a reflection of how we see ourselves in relation to nature and to the wider world. In this episode, we explored the DNA of plants, how obsession and empire reshaped the English garden. In the next episode, we'll uncover another strand, the DNA of emotion, why English gardens are designed to make us feel. Because to understand the English garden, we have to understand what it was built to express.